Hello everybody, welcome to the Huddle. I'm MP, or Matthew Purdue, and before we get into it, I just want to say that wait between the last video I made and now was mostly because of school and everything, but we'll discuss that more in a separate video. But what we're going to be talking about today is, obviously if you read the title or the thumbnail, did the Colts win this offseason so far? We're going to be talking about the biggest additions, the biggest losses, the draft class, my concerns, what I like, the QB room with Richardson, and then the section at the end, which we will get to. Alright, so the first section I want to get to is the recap, which is just going to be going over our biggest additions we've gotten so far, our biggest losses, which I'm sure a lot of you know those are, and our draft class. So first I want to bring up our biggest additions. I think the draft was the biggest part of the additions that we brought in, not just because I'm a Colts fan, but I think it was actually a very good draft. I think C.J. Allen, Burks, I think all those, the linebacker from Oregon, I believe, are all very good picks that I think fit our defense good. Now, when I talk about the draft, I can't not mention the reason we didn't have those first-round picks in Sauce Gardner. I think Sauce Gardner is going to have a huge year for us, probably get more picks he's ever had this year than he'll ever have in his career. That's what I believe. That's one of my hot takes. Sauce Gardner being the reason we don't have those two picks. I also think that Cam Taylor-Britt was a good pickup, because especially after going into this next section, our biggest losses, Kenny Moore, and I'm pretty sure Nick Cross, I do not know if that's 100% true, I'll cut that out if it's not, but Kenny Moore specifically, losing Kenny Moore, and we don't know how much longer we're going to have Travis Ward. And the other two names I haven't brought up, AJ Halsey out of LSU and Caden Curry, Caden Curry out of Ohio State, both of them are also going to help bring in those missing gaps we have on defense. And to be honest, maybe we're not filling in the right positions. Maybe we weren't filling in the right positions before, but I think the team now, like the staff, have really gone in the right direction, if you know what I'm saying, figuring out what positions to fill in, because, we used to have, Shaq Leonard and Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed, all of them, they're all gone, and now you kind of replace those, you replace that whole group. So it's like a rebuild without having to rebuild, and that is why I think our draft class was better than a lot more than people give it on, and I'd even give it an A. Alright, so next section I want to go into my concerns and our weaknesses this year. I think our biggest weakness is health. There's always an issue with health concerning this team, whether it's the offensive line, the defense, the quarterback room. All of them have weaknesses that could kill us if one of them goes wrong, and the one I'm most worried about is the offensive line, because if you take Daniel Jones, you look at his stats before he got hurt: 3,101 yards, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and a 100.2 passer rating. That's when the offense was healthy. That's when 4 out of the main 5 starters were healthy. You take that down, he averages about 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. So not good numbers when you're looking at an O-line that has been very inconsistent health-wise. Now, Quentin Nelson, he's amazing. How long will we have him? I really don't know. We've lost a few of those key pieces that I thought were great, like Fries and Kelly. I think they were good. I think they were good, and I think a lot of the linemen, especially the guard we got, are going to have to step up and maybe even move around the line to protect Daniel Jones. And that brings me into another concern: Daniel Jones. Everybody knows when to take a quarterback, tears his ACL or Achilles or whatever, they're different now. Some of them are different for good, some of them are different for bad. Just like Mahomes, what is Jones going to be? Will he have almost, will he average, 200 yards a game, 2 touchdowns to 0 interceptions like he did? I don't know. And if Daniel Jones isn't the guy, if he comes out and isn't good, like, where does Richardson step into this? Because his record overall in games is 8-7. So it's not like he's, like everybody thinks, 1-13. He's 8-7 in those games. Am I glazing him? No, he's still not a very good quarterback. In 2024, he threw for 814 yards, 8 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, but 6 rushing touchdowns. So if you add in those rushing touchdowns, and maybe with the new scheme of the offense coming up, because I'm sure next year's offense is going to be significantly different from last year. That's another hot take. I think it's going to be a lot less, hey, let Taylor have 400 yards and we win this game by running the whole fourth quarter. I think it's going to be more, hey, we're up by a touchdown, let's score 2 more through the air, and Jonathan Taylor will already have 100 by that point. And I think Jonathan Taylor's going to have a good year. But back to Richardson, maybe he would progress by starting. I don't want him to start. I'd rather have Daniel Jones behind the helm, and that's part of the next section with what I like. So, only a few more things here, but before we get into the record predictions, I just want to bring up the fact that our schedule opens, so this kind of is the record section, our schedule opens, the first, I think 6 or 7 games are the one of the hardest in the league. There's been a lot of schedules the NFL's released this year where the top games, the first games of the schedule, are not favored, or not. We play the Ravens, then we play the Chiefs, and then we play the Texans, I believe, and that is not the type of schedule you want to be looking at, because we started 3-0 last year. You don't want to start 0-3, especially with a team you don't know where your ceiling is. After missing the playoffs the last 3 years, it's just like the question is going 9-8 every year and making the playoffs but losing the wild card, the Steelers, worse or better than having the same record but missing the playoffs every year. I believe I'd rather miss the playoffs, but if you're going to be a good team, you have to show it earlier on in the season. You can't have one of those years like the Falcons do, where you start 3-6 or 3-7, 4-6, whatever, and then you get good at the end of the season and end up out of the playoffs, but also a bad pick in the draft. You don't want that season. So for my prediction, I have it on TikTok, but I have us going 10-7. I have us losing to the Ravens and the Chiefs and beating the Texans. I think the Texans are a team that we're going to be able to beat this year. Same with the Jags. I think this year is going to be different just because I believe that our scheming is going to be different. Now, if it isn't different, then we'll probably lose to those teams. So I think our floor is 6-11. I really do. Maybe even 5-12. It all depends on the health of the offensive line, the health of the defense, and the quarterback. My prediction is 10-7, and then I have a ceiling at 12-5. I don't think we will nowhere. I don't think we'll ever get anywhere toward. We won't sweep anybody in our division. The most, we'll sweep the Titans and maybe the Texans, depending on the play of C.J. Stroud. It all depends on that. So what I want to ask you is, how do you think the Colts are going to do this year? Leave your predictions in the comments, and that's all I'll have. So, all right, friends, this was an episode of The Huddle, and we'll see you next time. Go Colts.
Back in my zone, man,